Hello and welcome to Mike's Garage. If you've already subscribed to our channel, thank you very much. If you haven't, please do. And when you do, please tap on the notification bell so you'll be notified each time we put up a new video. And if you tap on the little like button, we appreciate that too. Well, we're back on this little Panhead now, which is a very cool thing. There isn't a lot left to do, but I need to wire it before we fire it up or anything. And because I have to make sure all the systems work, everything has to work, or there's no point in any of it. This bike is going to need to be registered, pass highway patrol inspection and all that. So one of the things I'm doing is just repairing. I wanted to repair the wiring, and on this bike, what that means is throw it away and start over, which is okay. There's very little wiring on these old bikes. There isn't much to them. If you look at a service manual, this is from the 70s. Here's a schematic on the wiring that's in a shovel head. Well, I throw that away too, unless I have to do a really stock restoration for some reason. I just wire each system independently, make it work, and I try to stick with the 70s color coding. That way, no matter who gets into the bike, they'll understand what's going on. Easy to reference. A taillight is green. The brake light on the same taillight is red. The oil light is yellow, and the brake light switch is red to the brake light itself. Orange is the hot wire for that. Once you get those down, it's really not hard at all, and there's not much I'm doing here. Now, we're still running an old 6-volt system on here, which gets two wires to it. One right here, which goes up to the light in the dash. That one was already there. And this wire down below, which should go over to the original cutout relay, which has been replaced with an electronic component now that does the same thing. And I remember this working well, so there's no reason for me to replace it at this point. However, when I put it in, this is from the battery, or from the generator to the battery, but this end goes to the battery. I want to run it under the primary here and up the seat post to the battery. So what I did is I cut a longer piece of wire for it, and I'm going to splice it together. Not a big deal. But a lot of people hate doing wiring, and you know, if I do a real messy, lousy job here, maybe nobody else will be intimidated when they go to do it. But this wire here, I've tried to strip it with wire strippers, and it's some really funky stuff. So I decided I would strip it with a razor blade. Yep. It's about ready to come off of there. Well, I thought it was. I could just take my strippers and do it, but I really was doing better with a razor blade. There we go. All right. Yeah, notice I did this pretty long. Now, before we turned the camera on, I tried doing it a little shorter, and it did not come out too well. Which means I'm out of practice. That's what happens when you retire. You get out of practice. Okay, so what we're going to do is just kind of fan these wires out a little bit. So they're like in a single layer here. Seems to be a little solder on that one from my first attempt. That's a little better. Then we'll fan this one out the same way. Now let's see if I can make that show up on the camera. Look at that. So basically what I did there was just weave them together. And I'm gonna have to squeeze them with a pair of pliers here because they're really not that nice. When I do this on number 14 wire, it works a whole lot better. But this is what it is. This is number 12, and trying to make this all come out nice and pretty. I'm going to have guys who are going to write into the comment section and say, "What's the matter with you?" There we go. Now we're going to put it right here. These little clamps. And then we're going to squish all of this real well. And now we're going to heat it up. And fill it full of solder. Now, heating it from underneath makes the solder flow down when you apply it from the top. Something about gravity. So we're just getting it hot right now. There we go. It's a pretty big piece to be soldering. Like I said, I normally solder number 16 and number 14 wire. It's a lot easier to make a nice wrap or braid, whatever you want to call it, when you're putting it together. But this is just my little home unit here, and it's doing it rather nicely. Now, what we're going to do is let it cool just a little bit. And then we'll take it out of the clamp here, turn it over and make sure we got penetration on both sides. Probably not. As I suspected. Now we'll get this going again. And when we're all done, this will think it's one piece of wire. There it goes. Takes a while to get that all heated up. We'll take and squeeze this down a little bit, make it a little more compact. All right, there we have it. Now, I think that'll be just fine. Basically, you want to make sure that you're making continuity with that wire all the way through. And what we're going to do now is we're going to cover that splice. Shouldn't be too hard. It looks good and solid now. So we will cover it up. With its shrink tubing right there. And that should be pretty easy. You can use a heat gun for this, or a cigarette lighter, or whatever you like. Getting low on fluid here. Mike, you got a lighter on you? Ho-ho! Bic to the rescue. All right. And there it is, all shrinked and shrunk. It is shrunken. Okay, so we can connect this to the battery, run it underneath. What we're going to do is we're going to run it through some of this antique loom. For people who like that, which I really do, this is what the antiques all used. And there are a lot of companies around the country now that carry this stuff. I think it's called asphalt webbing, but it is the real cloth wire insulation wrap like the antique bikes and cars all used. I've used it all my life. Local parts house where I used to live kept it in stock for me. And like I said, all of the antique companies that deal in antique wiring have that stuff. So I'm going to get this thing wired, and I've got a couple other things to do to it. We should be able to fire it up pretty soon. So until then, I'll see you out on the road.